on human rights and pluriversalism, the principles of dignity, respect, and coexistence that underpin human rights are shared across civilizations and worldviews. Yet different traditions place varying emphasis on rights, responsibilities, and duties. Today, we will explore how these principles are understood and upheld in the context of emerging pluriversal world, how human rights are understood, first of all, but also implemented according to different civilizational understandings. I am pleased to introduce our four distinguished presenters who will each share their own perspectives on this matter. Without further delay, let me give the floor to our first speaker, Ms. Yunfei Zhang. Ms. Yunfei joined in the United Nations Association of China in 1988 and is currently board member of UNA China. She has previously held positions such as Deputy Director General of UNA China, Vice President of the China NGO Network for International Exchanges, board member of the Chinese Association for International Understanding, and board member of the Chinese Society of International Law. Ms. Zhang, the floor is yours. No, it will go automatically.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, for your kind introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. It is a great pleasure for me to be invited to speak on the significant topic of human rights and pluriversalism. In our globalized world, re-examining the concept of human rights through the lens of pluriversalism is crucial for a more just and inclusive global community. As we know, for decades, the discourse on human rights has been dominated by a single Western-centric narrative that often frames rights as universal in form, but narrow in cultural perspective. However, as our world grows more interconnected, it is imperative to embrace pluriversalism, the recognition that human rights can be understood and practiced through diverse cultural lens while upholding shared core values. The traditional human rights narrative emphasizes individualism, liberty, and the primacy of the individual over the collective. This framework has made invaluable contributions to advancing freedom and dignity worldwide, from ending colonialism to promoting gender equality. Yet, it often overlooks the cultural, historical, and contextual differences that shape how societies perceive and implement human rights. When imposed as a one-size-fits-all model, it risks marginalizing alternative perspectives and failing to address the unique challenges faced by diverse communities. This is where pluriversalism offers a path forward, and Chinese cultures provides profound insights into reimagining human rights through a more balanced lens. Chinese philosophy, from Confucianism to Taoism, has long emphasized the interdependence of individuals and society, which deeply influences China's human rights outlook. In Chinese society, the relationship between the individual and the community is highly valued. This cultural background has led to a distinct understanding of human rights in China, with an emphasis on the balance between rights and obligations. For example, when every citizen has the right to a good education, there is also an implicit obligation to use this education to contribute to the development of the country and the well-being of the community. Moreover, China's human rights concept also takes into account the balance between individual rights and collective rights. In the Chinese context, collective rights such as national sovereignty, social stability, and environmental protection are seen as essential for the realization of individual rights. A stable and prosperous country provides a solid foundation for individuals to enjoy their rights. For example, China's poverty alleviation efforts not only improve the living standards of millions of people, fulfilling their right to a decent life, but also contribute to the overall stability and development of the nation. The initiatives put forward by China, such as Global Civilization Initiative and Global Governance Initiative, further demonstrate its commitment to a pluriversal understanding of human rights. The Global Civilization Initiatives calls for dialogue, mutual learning, and respect among different civilizations. It acknowledges that each civilization has its own unique understanding of human rights, and through cultural exchanges, we can gain a more comprehensive and profound understanding of human rights in different contexts. This initiative opposes the imposition of a single model approach to human rights and promotes a more inclusive and diverse global human rights discourse. The Global Governance Initiative focuses on promoting a more just and effective global governance mechanisms. In the field of human rights, it aims to ensure that international rules and institutions better reflect the interests and the needs of all countries, especially developing countries. For example, in promoting sustainable development, this initiative emphasizes the importance of safeguarding the rights of people in developing countries to development, resources, and a clean environment. In conclusion, the concept of pluriversalism enriches our understanding of human rights by integrating different cultural perspectives, such as the Chinese emphasis on the balance of rights and obligations and the harmony between individual and collective rights, along with initiatives like the Global Civilization Initiative and the Global Governance Initiative. We can move towards a more inclusive and just global human rights framework. This framework respects the diversity of cultures and historical backgrounds, while upholding the fundamental values of human dignity and equality. Let us work together to build a world where human rights are truly enjoyed by all, regardless of their cultural, national, or social backgrounds. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Zhang, for presenting your position on the human rights in China and in Chinese perspective. Now I will move to our next speaker, Mr. Alfred Gondo. He's a Congolese human rights expert with over 3 decades of field and advisory experience across African region. He holds advanced degrees in philosophy and legal political anthropology from the University of Paris-Sorbonne. Mr. Gondo has served with several international organizations, including UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, the World Health Organization, and the Center for Human Rights, precursor of today's OHCHR. His career spans key humanitarian postings in Burundi, Chad, and Democratic Republic of Congo, where he worked on human rights monitoring, humanitarian coordination, and social mobilization. Currently a senior human rights advisor with Interfaith International NGO in Geneva, as well as founding director of Elwati NGO. He has contributed to human rights advocacy through publication and public statements at the Human Rights Council sessions and civil society platform. He is recognized for his efforts in promoting dialogue, peace building, and transitional justice in conflict-affected areas. Mr. Gondo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, everyone. First of all, I would like to congratulate and thank you, our friend and colleague, Dr. Rai, for his steadfast commitment to organizing meetings on the values we share, even though these values may be contradictory from one society to another. It is difficult to debate the issue of pluralism and human rights in 1 hour, given the concept of ancient African, South Asian, and Chinese civilization that has contributed to world history and continue to contribute even more in a rapidly changing world. Some anthropologists criticize United Nations universal human rights as ethnocentrically Western, but all social cultural groups define some concept analogous to human rights and multiple political and philosophical cultures as contribute to the evolving UN framework. This essay traces the 4 major sources of modern human rights: Western political liberalism, socialism, and social welfare principle, cross-cultural right tradition, and the UN instrumented, and focuses on point of agreement in the evolving framework. The evidence is used to argue for a pluralist approach to human rights, rather than narrowing universal, Western, or broader cultural relativist approaches, and suggests points for additional anthropological contribution. We took an example. In ancestral African tradition, good behavior, keeping one's word or respecting others, maintain balance and harmony within the social group. Everyone has a duty to behave in exemplary manner, both within and outside the group. African individuals do not only have rights because traditional African law considers duties to be the other side of subjective human rights. The two are closely intertwined. African spiritualities and major religions all recognize the importance of duty in the fulfillment of rights. Just as European human rights philosophers base their existence on the inherent nature, African conceive and accept the existence of duties either imposed by the gods, transmitted by ancestors, or necessary for community life. Thus, there are duties to our gods, to our elders, to our parents, relatives, and neighbors. These duties are diverse and their scope depends on the degree of the relationship. Referring to the content of 2 texts transcribed from African oral tradition, these are the Mande Charter, Enter Haute, and the Kuru Kan Fuga Charter. These 2 texts, whose content is irrelevant today, as it is evocative in terms of law that back to 1222 and 1236, respectively. Thus, Statement 3 of the Enter Oath instructs every individual to watch over their neighbor, to honor their parents, to educate their children properly, and to support and provide their family. These arguments are genuine duty that individuals must fulfill toward their fellow human beings. Even more important are the duty that individuals owe to their parents and family. They must show reverence and obedience to the former and provide for and protect the latter. Whether we call them obligation, duty, or responsibilities, these injunctions are still part of everyday life for African today. An African who does not respect his parents has no standing in society. Similarly, an African who does not take care of his family becomes the laughing stock of society. There is no worse humiliation for an African than to fail to fulfill these two categories of duties. African states adopted treaty both to demonstrate their commitment to the international order they were joining and to assert their identity and refusal to blend anonymously into the international system. The African Charter on Human and People Rights is the first instrument for the protection of human beings that asserts its uniqueness in relation to universal discourse. This movement is normative protocol and the Charter of the right and welfare of the child, creating a systematic approach that makes the African human rights system a coherent and original whole. This system has certainly contributed greatly to the development of criticism of Western centrism in this area and in international law in general, as well as to debate on the universality of human rights. This statement must be viewed in conjunction with the African Cultural Charter, adopted in Port Louis in 5th July 1976, 5 years before the African Charter on Human and People Rights. The Charter strongly emphasizes a particularism approach to culture, which starts from a conception specific to each human community and works backwards to a unified conception of Africa. In conclusion, on this basis, the Commission has affirmed that collective environmental, economic, and social rights are essential elements of human rights in Africa. In my humble opinion, pluriversalism can contribute to cohesion, respect for dignity, tolerance, and harmony if we take into consideration the cultural and traditional specificity of each society at a given moment or in its historic development. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gondo, for your very interesting intervention, also bringing the regional human rights instruments like the African Charter for Peoples and Human Rights, and also trying to see that all these systems are also complementary in certain perspectives. Now I will move to Mr. Conrad Ho, who is an entrepreneur and investor with multiple successful exits. He's chairman of Coho Group, investing in and incubating tech startups and tech-enabled companies, and co-founder of FoundFast, the startup platform showcased at the World Youth Development Forum. He's a member of the HKSAR Youth Development Commission and the executive vice chairman of the Y Elite Association. The floor is yours, Mr. Ho.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I am Conrad Ho from the Y Elites Association. We're an organization established in Hong Kong in 2007 to further youth development. In a world searching for models for pluriversal coexistence, I want to share a real-life case study from my home, Hong Kong. I think that we as a global community are learning to move beyond a legacy where a single worldview has long dominated. So to resolve conflicts, we must return to the universal first principles of dignity, respect, and coexistence. I believe that the way forward is to build frameworks that are rooted not only in our universal rights, but also being considerate of local values, local traditions, and allowing diverse systems to truly harmonize. So I invite everyone to imagine human rights not as a single melody, but as a symphony of dignity. Each culture is a unique instrument. We have the violins of Western individualism, the percussions of African communalism, the flute of Asian familial values. And the goal is not for one to dominate the other, but to create a symphony where we can all harmonize. And the conductor's role, a role for bodies like the UN, is not to dictate every single note, but instead to ensure mutual respect and a shared rhythm. I think that this idea finds resonance across many cultures, including in the Chinese concept of 和而不同, harmony and difference. In Hong Kong, the one country, two systems principle embodies exactly this. It is not just an abstract philosophy for us, but it is something that we live and breathe every day. It is codified in our basic law, our constitutional document. It is the small business owner who sources products from the mainland while relying on Hong Kong's independent judiciary. It is the student who studies a global curriculum but returns home to a family shaped by traditional Chinese values. So let me share with you 3 examples of how this principle can drive tangible results. First, on how diversity fuels our economy. Our push for inclusive corporate governance, including the Hong Kong Stock Exchange's 2025 requirement for all listed companies to have at least one director of a different gender, helps build a more robust and resilient economy. This fosters a greater variety of perspectives, reduces cognitive biases, and enhances connectivity. This commitment is a key reason why, according to the latest financial data, Hong Kong has once again topped the global IPO fundraising rankings. We've raised nearly 150 billion HKD by the end of August this year, and this figure is almost 6 times higher than the same period last year. Second, on how we create an enabling environment to nurture world-class talent. Through a combination of government talent admission schemes and NGO-led initiatives to solve localized problems, we have created a vibrant ecosystem. For example, our association, the Y Elites Association, provides subsidized quality living spaces for youth in one of our projects. And our youth then pay it forward by volunteering and engaging civically and strengthening community bonds. But this impact for these Hong Kong projects is not just limited to Hong Kong. Another project I founded connects Hong Kong's resources with global talent, empowering and upskilling marginalized youth through apprenticeship programs. We've seen young people from Ghana increase their income by up to 10-fold after going through our program. I believe that the results speak for themselves. The IMD World Talent Ranking of 2025 places Hong Kong 4th globally and 1st in Asia. However, this economic and social vitality rests upon a very important fundamental foundation, a robust legal framework that guarantees stability. So my final point is that ensuring a baseline of societal stability is an essential precondition for diversity, talent, and truly pluriversal coexistence. Our experience in Hong Kong has taught us that legislation, including NSL, the National Security Law, SNSO, the Safeguarding of the National Security Ordinance, is essential to provide this foundation and to creating a predictable and secure environment for a true plurality of voices to flourish. This stability allows not just for economic prosperity, but also for the preservation and the evolution of core cultural values, like the Confucian principle of filial piety, which continues to shape our family structures and social responsibilities. It enables Hong Kong to be that unique synthesis of an international metropolis where people of diverse backgrounds live, work, and thrive together, all while traditional values inform a modern, pluralistic society. The success of this approach is confirmed by the Fraser Institute's Economic Freedom of the World report, which ranks Hong Kong as the world's freest economy in 2025 and top in the freedom to trade internationally. This demonstrates that stability and freedom are not opposites, but 2 sides of the same coin. It is the very coin that purchases the space for pluriversal coexistence. So to conclude, coexistence is not about one system erasing another. It is about weaving different realities into a single, strong social fabric. From Hong Kong, we have learned that this symphony, while challenging, is indeed possible. And it requires listening, patience, and the conviction that our harmonious chorus will be indefinitely more powerful and more beautiful than any solo. So we offer our Hong Kong journey as a living musical score for this vital global dialogue. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Conrad. And I forgot to mention that Conrad has been also recognized as a Prestige 40 Under 40 honoree, RSA Fellow, Outstanding Young Entrepreneur in the Greater Bay Area, and also US Chess Federation National Master, and a great panelist also. We can add it to it. So without further ado, I'm moving to our last panelist, Dr. Jasdev Singh Rai, a London-based ENT doctor and director of Sikh Human Rights Group, which holds UN ECOSOC status from 2015. He represents the group at international forums such as UN Human Rights Council here and the climate conferences, advocating a pluralistic, Sikh-inspired approach to human rights and environmental justice. Dr. Rai emphasizes indigenous knowledge, cultural diversity, and the integration of local community practices into global policies. His leadership advances inclusive strategies that promote environmental sustainability, social justice, and a holistic, pluralistic view of human rights. Dr. Rai, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's a very interesting topic. Until about a decade ago, the focus was generally about entrenching UN systems and monitoring processes from the Charter compliance to human rights. The general gist was that better implementation ensured by more intrusive monitoring within states and reporting with regional and state offices would deliver the objectives of the UN. The contradiction in this is the state is sovereign. It is sovereign not just territorially, but also in the system of political governance, jurisprudence, development, aims and culture, or cultures that it considers best suited to its population. However, an external agency, the UN in this case, wants to be awarded authority to judge and monitor these aspects from the principles of a different civilization, which assumed the mantle of universal. Now, discussions are shifting towards a broader focus on civilizations, cultures, and whether there are needs to change even the Charter. It is an obvious statement that the world is not only in transition, but in turmoil as well. Wars continue, human rights violations continue when judged from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Poverty and in fact hunger still remains in significant numbers, and we have raced towards climate disaster. Is there a way out of this? I believe there are solutions if we can be less dogmatic about universalism and more flexible towards coexistence and pluralism. Our topic today is human rights in a pluriversal world. We believe we are moving towards a pluriversal future where we can respect the wisdom of civilizations and cultures that have evolved over centuries, if not thousands of years. So we need to create an institutional framework that enables coexistence of different perspectives and worldviews, rather than seek to impose a universal gridlock on systems of governance, law, and development based on the political philosophy and evolution of one civilization. This is not a criticism of any civilization or the UN. The UN has served humanity well. It has been responsible for peace and better quality of life and dignity for many. There is a general categorization of the post-Second World War period as Pax Americana. Pax means peace. I would say it has been Pax UN by the world community. When the UN was formed and the UDHR was drafted and the systems of implementation and monitoring were instituted, power was concentrated in the hands of Occidental civilization. it was inevitable that the institution would be formed in their image. Today, we see power has become diffuse, with not only countries around the world becoming powerful politically, militarily, and economically, but also more assertive about their culture and civilization. Hence, the future is most likely to revolve around a wider discussion around the most fundamental code of conduct, the UDHR, and its implementation between universalism and pluriversalism. Without becoming too ambitious, let's just see how human rights are perceived and implemented in reality around the world. The Occidental civilization is very much the product of Judeo-Christian traditions. In fact, Abrahamic religions are legalistic religions with emphasis on God's law for human society. Christianity and Islam are inherently universalist. With this, we see this in Occidental secular civilization now. It has put the law, the moral code of the state, and hence the rights against the power of the sovereign central to its worldview. It works well and has endured despite 2 world wars. However, it has inherited the obsession with universalism that often restricts a meaningful dialogue and approach to coexistence with the other worldviews. In some civilizations, such as those of South Asia, the codes of conduct and traditional jurisprudence is based on responsibilities and duties rather than rights. This form of civilization has evolved over thousands of years. It went through a period of absolute power of the ruler and gradually moved away from that and evolved a system where no one had absolute power. There are many schools of thought that dominate the moral codes and tradition systems of ensuring dignity as well as respect and a fair system of governance. I can talk about the Sikh value systems and moral codes that have existed for more than 4 centuries. Take Article 1. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. This is an interesting statement. It sounds quite lofty, but we are also born in a family, in a community, and are dependent on others for our upbringing, morals, and even basic needs such as security, healthy food, and even early education. The word dignity are part of our philosophy, but we will wonder what is the right against? Who is trying to impose their power over the person that a person needs rights against? This is a fundamental difference between cultures and civilizations that transfer absolute power to someone or an authority, and others that feel sovereignty is pooled and conditional rather than assumed by an authority. This is the difference between the idea of contract between people and sovereign and others that emphasize responsibilities and duties towards each other. The end result may be the same, meaning that we see individual as sovereign, but the individual pools his or sovereignty of the individual if the individual wishes to be part of society. The word rights then becomes problematic in a philosophical context. Take Article 3 of the UDHR. Everyone has a right to life, liberty, and security of person. In the kingdom of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, which was run along Sikh philosophy, capital punishment was never carried out. Death sentence was considered to be against the principles of our worldview, as no one, not even the Maharaja, had the power to take life unless in a war. Now, this was long before the first European country banished death penalty. Today, we still have many countries continuing with death penalty despite everyone having the right to life. It is true this is qualified later in Article 21, 29, in the exercise of his rights and freedom, everyone shall be subject to such limitations as determined by law. So, but in our worldview, we don't feel that anyone can decide limitations to every individual, their life to the full, even in prison. The state isn't given the authority to take life. Now, we don't say that this should be universal. Other civilizations have different perspectives and other different concepts on the state's right to take the life of an individual who is problematic for the rest of society. Take Article 19, no one shall be subjected to arbitrary arrest, detention, or exile. In our history, every accusation or charge against an individual or a group was heard by a competent group of people, and the person or group was given opportunity to defend themselves. It was already there, except the system of charging and deciding was different. The person was charged with abrogating their responsibilities. For instance, every person had a responsibility to respect the dignity of others, not to harm others, not to steal, not to cheat, etc. The chart was not violation of the law, but a dereliction of duty, obligation, and custom. Consider both Articles 18 and 19, freedom of thought, conscience, and religion, freedom of opinion and expression. The problematic word here is religion. What is religion? Religion is a word that evolved in Occidental civilization as the church was pushed out from the levers of power and lawmaking. It is a unique experience of the Occidental civilization. However, it is not a problem experienced by other civilizations. The worldviews or belief systems in non-Abrahamic systems are not legalistic, but concentrate more on metaphysics and moral principles, leaving codes of conduct and law to society to determine within general principles. Metaphysics is an obsession of science as well. It is remarkable that many of the ideas we ascribe to science, such as evolution, time, space, numerous universes, already existed in South Asian worldviews, including ours. Why are our ideas on these categorized as religion and science as a fact? Take the issue of gender equality. We have never had an issue of treating women as subservient to men. They've held very important positions in Sikh history. The person who was leading negotiation of the defeat of the Sikh armies in 1846 was a lady, Maharani Jinder. The British governor wrote in his diary, "What sort of society is this that has a woman to negotiate for it?" That hate for a woman with so much power led the British to treat her abysmally, even taking her 8-year-old child from her. The point is that UDHR and many treaties assume that the experience of the Occident and its worldview is universal to all. In fact, reality is that many civilizations have long had codes of conduct, rules, and legal systems that were delivering the principles that inspire UDHR. We never had inequality, so the politics of equality is a bit superfluous to us Sikhs. The reason we didn't have inequality is because we see every life form as manifestation of the same. Hence, discrimination and inequality is essentially an act against oneself. The basis of treating everybody with respect is not legalistic or the right of everyone to dignity, but a responsibility to treat all life as an extension of oneself as diverse manifestation. That's how we see things. The argument could be, if the result is the same, then what is the issue? If the UDHR principles are also in your philosophy, then why change the UDHR? Quite simply, really, there are two matters here. We all wear clothes to cover our bodies against cold, heat, and to appear with dignity. But some wear basic clothes, others spend a lot of money on expensive designs. We have different preferences. Some cover the whole body, and some show a lot of the body. We don't have a universal code of dress. Human beings are diverse and feel comfortable with different perspectives and outlooks. Similarly, systems of codes of governance and laws are also designed differently in different civilizations, even if the end intention is the same. Secondly, while rights are fundamental in a civilization that transfers sovereignty to an external authority such as the state or the monarch, many civilizations have a balance of rights and responsibilities as well as duties that have evolved over hundreds, if not thousands of years. People understand their civilizations better. Civilizations have informed our conduct, communities, and understanding of why we treat others with dignity and respect. They give us the reason why we treat others with dignity. But if we uproot the fabric, the moral principles, and philosophy that sustained the people for centuries, we end up disrupting the well-established coherence of that society. Universalism is a mythical mission. Human society is very diverse, not only in form, but in ideas and worldviews, even if with same goals. We hope that this transition period will begin to look at coexistence and pluralism as a way forward to ensure dignity and respect for all and peace for the future. Many wars in history have been fought over desire to impose one philosophy or worldview over others. Coexistence requires us to respect a pluriversal world. It's very encouraging and welcome that China is thinking of a global civilization of coexistence of different civilizations rather than a universal set of values for everybody, a universal set of rights for everybody based on one civilization. I hope that we will see the transition period and the change in the UN become more pluralistic of accepting other civilizations and moving forward towards a more peaceful world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rai, for your thoughtful remarks about how we can move towards the pluriversal world. I have a question to all our panelists, starting with Mr. Conrad. And the question is the same for all of four. How do you see pluriversalism, the topic that we have just discussed, gaining traction within the United Nations system? Do you think there are specific opportunities in this period of transition? And what are the obstacles or challenges that you can think of? Mr. Conrad?
Thank you for your question. I think that definitely to transition towards a more pluriversal model for the UN is a very important process. And how to do that is not a very easy topic to have a 100% completed answer for. But I think that there is one point that I would like to bring up. And it is that in working with all the different countries and in working with all the different NGOs, the role that the NGOs play when they interact, with the UN and also with their countries, you could be, and I think it's important to make sure that the countries and the NGOs understand that they are working together, like the NGOs are working with their native countries and not necessarily for it or against it. And it is with this type of collaboration that will allow the NGOs to tackle very, very localized specific problems and to deliver the best results. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gondo, what would you say also, taking into consideration your vast experience in the UN system, how do you see actually something happening, something changing from what UN was, let's say, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago, and now? And what do you think, like, where are we moving towards, and how we can actually make the UN and the global institutions more pluralistic? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I will give only my own experience. Since many years, attending to meetings and working for the system, nothing is new. So we need to go forward, and we need changes. I think 80 years for the system since the UN is existence. We need to revise. We need to tackle our new issue. We're talking about the global, the South Global. There are many queries of the country in the South. They want to change the way the state vote in the UN. And this is not new. How to change the composition of the Security Council, how to improve the NGO in the South, in the global South. We need all this state to be the new model. New model means we have our approach, and if we have that opportunity to make a change, I think we will see the new changes. So I think every country, every state is trying to move forward. So I don't know if I replied to the question, but there is a change. We need a change. Yes. So this neologism of pluriversal universalism is a new concept. So we need to invent a new word. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gondo. What would you say, Ms. Zhang, about this?
This year marks the 80th anniversary of the founding of the United Nations. In the past 80 years, the United Nations has played a significant role and made great contributions to the world peace, international development, development cooperation, and the promotion of human rights. But now the United Nations is facing multiple challenges. One of the challenges is that the representation of the global South. So I think the more voices from the developing countries should be heard, and that they should be more representative. In terms of the participation of NGOs, I totally agree with you. I think the participation of NGOs is unbalanced between the North and the South. We can see NGOs based in Geneva. There are about 400 NGOs based in Geneva, but more than 80% of them are from the developed countries. NGOs from the developing countries are very few here. So, and also the NGOs from the developed countries have more funding and they have more professional staff. So I think when we have more participation in the United Nations, but actually it is unfair because NGOs from the global South are underrepresented. So I think the United Nations should promote the capacity building for the NGOs from the developing countries so that they have better participate in the UN affairs. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. Rai, your thoughts?
Okay, I think shifting very entrenched positions can be very difficult. And I think that one of the problems that a change faces is that most of the diplomats around the world are brought up from with the same diet of education, same international theories, and same institutional structures. And they are used to it, and challenging with something new can be quite daunting for them. But the change, I think, will have to come with some powerful countries insisting that we need to look at some of the fundamentals. It's often said when the Charter was formed and the UDHR was eventually formed, that even China was there, but that China that was there was the one in Taiwan now. It wasn't the mainland China which was represented there, so I wouldn't say Chinese civilization was represented there. India was not even represented there. Mahatma Gandhi had said, looking at the Charter and the UDHR, that this is not going to work. His views were not taken into consideration because he said, put more emphasis on responsibilities and duties as well. He was marginalized. So I think we are where we are now. The increasing voice coming from the secretariats of the various departments is human rights violations are increasing. Well, sometimes you have to ask, because I come from a medical background, I know about 40 years ago or 50 years ago, the doctor blamed the patient for not taking the medicine properly when the medicine didn't work. But then there came evidential medicine and we began to look at the idea that different human beings are different, different medicines work for different countries. And perhaps we need to look at the whole structure of the UN and the UDHR. Maybe the medicine isn't working because it may not be suited for every civilization and culture and country. Is there a need for a pluriversal approach? On the NGOs again, and I think one of the problems that many NGOs from developing countries come across is that there's an idea of what an NGO is within the UN system. An NGO has to be working against the state, has to be adversarial, has to be questioning the state. Now, that is not the process in many other countries and cultures where there is more of a cooperation between the state and NGO sector to deliver things such as development and poverty and things like that. So the NGO in many other countries are not necessarily sitting there with placards and always questioning the state, but are working with that. But that within the UN system is a bit of an inconsistency. So that's where I'm saying that you need to start looking at some of the fundamentals. We can't do as an NGO, but we hope some countries will begin to take this discussion further. It's a new discussion. I think it's challenging to many countries who are entrenched within the system, but it has to move forward for the better life of human beings and peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rai, and also thank you to all our panelists for their thoughtful contributions. We have only 3-4 minutes left, maybe 5. If someone in the room has a question, please raise your hand or nameplate. Any question? Any comment? Any remark? Doesn't work, the mic?
I'll try to speak loud enough.
Yeah, that's good. Works.
So, our friend, our doctor from London. So, in Sikhism, is there a difference in spirituality and religion? Would you say that?
I think the word, I don't understand the word spiritual actually. Our system is very much what CERN is looking for, that there is something that transfers itself into substance and then becomes particle and it becomes thing. So what is spiritual and what is not spiritual? It's not, philosophically we don't understand. Spiritual was a construction, I think, within the Christian church to separate the power of the temporal from the power of God. We can understand that. We have no concern about that. But we're saying we don't really understand that. Conceptually, it's a bit difficult. And that's where I'm saying civilizations are very different. Metaphysical approaches are very different. And if CERN comes finally to the idea that it's not a particle they're looking for, it's something else, does that become spiritual then? You know, does science become spiritual then? You know?
Any other concluding remarks from the panel? No, I think I should thank again everyone here. Neologism of pluriversalism, as Mr. Gondo has mentioned, is taking some traction in the UN spaces. And I think events like these are actually contributing to this. I think one of the ways of making UN more diverse and more plural is actually never giving up and continuing on collaboration of the NGOs, which are bringing new perspectives, which can be tested by time, of course, which can complement existing structures, which can change the existing structures. But I think it was quite interesting. I learned myself as an observer a lot from your interventions. And I also like the fact that we brought different perspectives from the business to the UN background, from the UN association background at a regional level, and also from the faith perspectives and civil society background. Thank you very much for being here for us during your lunchtime, and have a great afternoon.